Good morning. Call the meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council on this pre-agenda meeting. Do a roll call right now. Is Mayor Pro Tem, are you here? Here. Councilmember Rivenbark, are you here? Councilmember Spears, are you here?
Here.
Councilmember Waddell, are you here? Councilmember Andrews?
Here.
I know Councilmember Joyner has court this morning, so he's already called and said he was not going to be able to make it, and the chair is here, so we have a quorum. We'll start off, we're going to have two presentations tomorrow night. You can see them on the screen there. C1 is consent agenda. C1 is approval of the council's meeting minutes. C2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Sound Thinking Incorporated for the continued lease of the Shot Spotter system for year 2026. C3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year contract with FMRT Group LLC for Wilmington Police Department pre-hire, post-hire, and post-critical incident evaluations. C4 is a resolution declaring Police Mount Comet as surplus property and authorizing transfer of retired Police Mount Comet to retired Mount Police Officer John Gordon. C5 is a resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement between the Wilmington Housing Authority and the City of Wilmington to assign 3 Wilmington police officers to Wilmington Housing Authority property. C6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase 48 sets of firefighting coats and pants from NAFCO of Decatur, Alabama for $209,210 through the NPP Gov Government Cooperative Buying Agreement. C7 is a resolution rejecting all bids for the Hooker Road MUP, Hinton Avenue MUP, and Riceville Avenue / Greenville Avenue intersection improvement projects. C8 is a resolution providing approval for the Wilmington Housing Authority's finance of a multifamily housing facility to be known as Avenue Flats in the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, with multifamily housing revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $28 million. Public hearings. PH1 is an ordinance closing a portion of Aubrey Alley between Parsley Street and Davis Street. PH2 is an ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 18, to reduce the number of uses permitted by special use permit. Ordinances. 01 is an ordinance adding sections 6-10 through 10, certain actions prohibited on city property, to Chapter 6, Article 1 of the Wilmington City Code. Resolutions. R1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase and sale agreement of surplus property located at 1702 Burnett Boulevard to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. R2 is a resolution in support of additional early voting locations. And last but not least is reports and report of council's evaluations committee. And those all for this pre-agenda. Ms. Clerk? Becky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 presentations for you this morning. The first one is to go over the consideration of the Community Relations Advisory Board, and that is going to be DCM Mary Bagu.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. This morning we're here to talk about the Community Relations Advisory Committee. I'm sorry it says board on front of your presentation. Recently the county had made some changes to our joint structure, and so I wanted to highlight some things. Back in 2015, the Wilmington City Council agreed to support the creation of the joint committee with New Hanover County. At the same time, the Board of Commissioners also voted to support the joint committee. City staff worked on the joint bylaws, and in 2016, they were adopted by City Council and the County Commissioners. Just recently, at the last County Commissioners meeting in 2025, they voted to conclude the county's participation, and we received a letter from them announcing that it was dissolving. So there it is, a 6 members board or committee appointed by the council. 6 are appointed by the county commissioners. You can see on the screen how they are represented. There are 2 from the civil rights community, 2 from the faith, 2 from the business community, 2 from the education, And then there's 4 at-large members, 2 from the city and 2 from the county. And so what is the committee's duties? Based on the bylaws that were adopted by both the county commissioners and city council, there were 6 areas of focus. And the first was really to research and study those conditions which represent prejudice or discrimination. It was also to develop educational and instructional materials and programs, and it was to promote those intergroup communications and relationship building within the community. It was also to serve as a resource for the city and the county during times of community crisis that stems from intergroup conflict. And it was also to provide information and referrals to organizations that promote healthy relations. And then last, it was to advise, whether it was city council or the county commissioners, the necessary procedures, programs, or policies that promote equal rights and recognition and appreciation of human diversity. And so it was a broad range of items that the committee was assigned to. There were some additional highlights I want to show from the bylaws. It was told to have 3 subcommittees that would meet: healthy intergroup communication and interaction. There was to be a public education piece to it. And the third was a crisis prevention and preparedness. They were to meet at least quarterly. I will say here that this group was meeting at least monthly. They would take a break in the summer. And then city county would rotate the operational support every 2 years. And so, for example, right now the city is involved in supporting the committee, and then in another year that would go back to the county. I want to talk a second. There are several other committees that the city has for our residents. One is a joint committee with the city county, and that is the Commission for Women, and they are active. They are there for the purpose of acting as an advocate for women and a resource of information on the status of women. The second is the Commission on African American History. That is not a joint committee with the county, that is just a city commission. They do quite a bit of work here in the community. They are quite active. They are led by our city clerk. They plan, develop, and implement community projects. They encourage and assist the African American history. And then they work to recognize sites in the community that are significant. So there's a couple considerations for council that we're requesting tomorrow night. One of the options is that we could sunset the committee. Based on my staff's interpretation and working with legal, based on what the county voted, because half of the committee was with the county, the bylaws are no longer active, and so we could sunset the committee and not reappoint it. We could review other avenues for engagement and identify any gaps a committee could fill within the community and bring that research back to you. Council could choose to establish a new committee and approve new bylaws and appoint residents to it. And option 4, there is lots of activity going on at the state and the federal government in this area. Recently, we're waiting to see what the state does with the governor's veto, which could impact our work in this area. And so we could pause until further action comes from the state and the federal government. And so I am happy to entertain or answer any questions that you may have this morning.
Yeah, Mary. So I don't really see an option to continue the committee as is, with the exception of, rewriting the charter, the governing documents, to just reflect that they're all appointed by the city.
That could be option 3. Basically, that would be just rewriting we would
step.
need to rewrite the bylaws to remove the relationship with the county and establish how you want to see the new members structured, because it's a 12-member board right now. 6 are from the county, so
Right.
we would just need some direction on how you'd want it structured.
Okay. And if I may, just one more. On option 4, pause until further actions from the state and federal government. What are the actions from the state and federal government that might conflict with the mission of this committee?
And I'm going to look to see some from our attorney, the direction from the state. There is legislation out there related to DE&I efforts. And Meredith, do you want to? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That would be the legislation we're looking at. Most of the state and federal legislation would consider a lot of the activities that this committee is doing to be done in pursuance of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts within the community. And so we would be waiting just until we get additional further guidance from them. That's not a recommendation one way or another. It's just a fact that there are efforts out there to end any committee or board or government entity that would be seen as pursuing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I said Mr. Mayor, not
Oh, I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
Sorry, Mayor. I just was chiming in. So I want to agree with Councilmember Andrews about not seeing the option of just writing the county off and going on with a new iteration of this CRAC. And you said that option 3 would cover that. I think that's the most plausible thing for us to do. We understand the severity of this work and that work needs to go on. And I would also have to push back on what the city attorney is saying and as far as option 4 and how this work can be deemed DEI, because we understand that there's an attack on DEI in general, but this work is necessary no matter what you call it. It's necessary work, and this is a pivotal committee to have in our organization. I would even say just ask the members of that committee. They're so well, I can't speak for them all, but just dumbfounded and really surprised by the actions of the New Hanover County Commissioners. So, I think it would just be in the best interest of the citizens of this community and this governing body to rewrite the bylaws and just write the county out and continue to do the work.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one question. When you mention like city and county rotates operational support, what does that mean?
It just means it's like the staff liaison to the committee itself. So, yeah.
That's also like,
So, for example, me and Linda Thompson right now are she was with the county. We would
Right.
attend the meetings. We would help the chair if they had any questions with the
Okay.
agenda. It's basically staff work.
so it wasn't really a financial,
I mean, there's minimal financial implications.
That's what I thought.
Materials, things like that, anything like we do with any other board or commission.
okay. And then you added the, like the Commission for Women and Commission on African American Studies. Is that actually a part of this coalition?
No, sir, they're separate. I just highlighted them because they are continuing some of this work already. The Women's Commission met just last week, in the African American history.
Right.
They're active as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But there is overlap.
I'm sorry, slight overlap, a different direction, but still working in the space of what we would consider DE&I.
Yes, sir, Mr. Waddell.
Mayor Pro Tem touched on it momentarily, but so basically what you said, there's really no additional cost that would be associated with moving this totally under the city?
No, sir.
Okay. Do we have any idea what just out of curiosity, it would probably be good to know for all of our boards and committees, honestly, just what the cost is from a staff time perspective. You probably don't know that right off the top of your head, but it would be good, I think, to kind of know all of our committees what that's costing the city. It's just as just from a budgetary standpoint. And then if you could back up one slide with regards to the city attorney's commentary on specifically the state legislation that's, I guess, working its way through. We'll see what happens there. Meredith, how would you anticipate if we were to continue on with option 3, and then the state enacts its DEI policy? I think that is in regards to cities as well. How would that affect this board as it stands?
It just depends on what that final legislation would actually say and what direction that would give, if any, as to what the definition of diversity, equity, and inclusion actually is, because currently there's really not, even in the legislation that's pending, an actual definition of what DE&I means. And so we would have to go back and see and look at the purposes of this committee and see if that falls under DE&I and evaluate it at that point. But we would have no problem if council decides to just move forward. We have no problem. It's not a big deal to rewrite the bylaws, given whatever council's direction would be, and we could do that and move forward. And then if we receive differing direction from the state, we could pivot at that point. Either way is fine.
Thank you.
But we would have to evaluate whatever the final legislation comes down to.
Thank you.
Becky, you looking for some direction from us this morning, or you just telling us?
No,
what
the
the
purpose
options?
of the presentation today was to just go over the options and the situation with council so that during tomorrow night's meeting, you would be prepared to be able to make official comments regarding the direction that council wants to give staff.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, and next up is going to be a presentation similar, Workforce Housing Advisory Committee from Rachel Schuler.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Member of Councils. Again, this is similar consideration for the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee. The committee really got started following the 2014 Pathways to Prosperity report, also known as the Gardner Report. New Hanover County had commissioned this report to look at, from an economic standpoint, the growth stimulated with job creation, business assistance, housing options, and development of a skilled workforce. The opportunities and challenges presented in that report were discussed at the Mayor's Roundtable Steering Committee back in 2015. Following that committee discussion, a joint ad hoc committee for workforce and affordable housing was conducted from 2016 to 2017. The final presentation was released in 2018 with recommendations for a permanent committee focused on housing affordability. In 2019, a joint resolution to establish the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee was adopted by both the county commissioners and city council until 2025, when New Hanover County voted to conclude the county's participation. This committee was a 13-member committee with 6 appointed by city council and 6 by the commissioners. It was intended to have a variety of backgrounds and thoughts, conversation put into this group, as well as the chair of the Joint Community Relations Advisory Committee. The committee had specific duties to procure a housing study and public opinion survey, to conduct public awareness campaign on the topic of workforce housing, to recommend to appointing authorities necessary procedures, programs, and policies to promote workforce housing, provide an annual written report or presentation, which you typically received in January, to conduct any other duties as assigned, and they were tasked to meet quarterly, but they also met monthly. Other highlights, this actually defined workforce housing in this interlocal agreement. It was defined as 60 to 120% of the area median income, which is slightly different from what we use for just affordable housing, which is up to 80% of the area median income. County staff also provided funding for the employment of a dedicated staff person to work on this issue, and they were the dedicated liaison for that committee. It did not rotate back and forth. The city did have a staff member as the liaison to work in coordination with the county and the committee. Just going over, since this committee and some other things have happened, the City of Wilmington adopted the strategic plan with a specific priority and focus area on thriving, inclusive, and affordable communities. As you can see, the objectives before you with the different initiatives are focused on these housing options and how to reduce barriers to develop more affordable housing. Some other existing engagement, we have citizen participation embedded in all of our planning processes, from neighborhood services, planning department, parks and rec, all of the departments, as they move forward with plans, do participate with citizen participation. There are also a requirement of our HUD to have these plans in place to make sure that we're hearing from the community through all of our housing planning process. There's some other groups that are doing some work. The Cape Fear Homeless Continuum of Care is a regional effort. It's Brunswick, Pender, New Hanover, and City of Wilmington that foster these collaborations and really look at this regional approach to homelessness in the community. And then the Cape Fear Housing Coalition, which is again a regional effort to look at affordable housing a little bit differently throughout the entire region. So those are not city-specific, they're not really focused just on the unique needs of the city, but those are conversations happening on a monthly basis. The considerations for this committee are, again, to sunset, to either review other avenues for engagement to identify any gaps that committee could fill, to establish a new committee. This could be similar to the prior structure, which is council appointed, or more of the Clean Energy Advisory Committee, which is the mayor appointed. And of course, the option 4 is to create an ad hoc committee to assess and make recommendation as part of specific plans. So as we look at updating the comprehensive plan, or when we do our 5-year consolidated plan for HUD, looking at an ad hoc committee that could serve those roles. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
Rachel, excuse me, and looking back, if you go back to that original screen, and going back to 14, 15, 16, 18, when everything was rolling, what in your opinion, and some of your peers' opinions, are the accomplishments that come as a result of this committee?
I think that there have been a lot of great initiatives that have come out of some of the work of the committee and before the committee through the ad hoc. I know that through the Land Development Code update, they added the incentives, the density incentives, and really put different tools forward. And so that some of those came from those recommendations from that group. Some of the funding that we've looked at, looking at different options on how to use it, and as we evaluate the success of our programs, looking at where there are gaps and where we could invest some of the resources a little bit differently. So those types of recommendations. And I think probably the biggest is just having it as part of an everyday conversation now. Every time people see rezonings, the first thing they think about, better or worse, is affordable housing and how it may fit, and really just, again, helping develop and options of tools for that toolbox that may fit different projects differently, and bringing in best practices from other communities.
Okay, let me ask him a question, similar question, but in a different way. How many physical units do you see as it come as a result that meet the criteria of affordable housing as a result of this committee, or anything, during these last 8 or 9 years?
It's a combination of the strategies that were put forward by the committee and some of the funding that came down through one-time funding, which again was helped directed by some of the recommendations of that committee. I'd have to take a look with the planning department to see through their density incentives how many units were created, but I can get that for you tomorrow.
I think that's kind of important. It sure is heck going to have an influence on what my decision is going to be. You know, benevolence is a wonderful thing. It does a lot of work, but nothing beats pressure. And there's no pressure applied to the respective staffs over at the county or here. And we all know, it's like the 800-pound gorilla in the room, that our rules and regulations and our ordinances add a tremendous amount of cost and time to what it takes to bring a project out of the ground. And during that time, the clock ticks at the bank, interest rates tick upward, and those things, that's where the rubber meets the road. I just don't see, I mean, everything you've just said I have been a part of up here, and I fully agree with, talk is wonderful, and everybody pats each other on the back when we walk out. I remember when I was running for office, I can't even remember which election it was, but it was after this had come about, and I stood up in front of a bunch of people over there at the convention center at a forum, and I said, I have never felt more confident. And believe me, I have heard a lot. I've been on a lot of committees and ad hoc committees and sat in a lot of rooms where everybody was talking about what we're going to do. And then this comes along, and I told her I've never felt more confident that you were going to see a huge difference in the way we go about building affordable housing, workforce housing. workforce. I don't see it. We've done a lot of little things, maybe trickle down, but I don't see the big push that we all thought we were going to get and promised to everybody. I just don't see it. Thank you.
Rachel, I had a discussion with you a couple of weeks ago about affordable housing and how much money we have spent. So as of to date, I think you told me since 2022 that the city has invested about $22 to $23 million
That's correct.
in affordability. And out of that resulted in 866 units so far to date, okay? So we have had success. I guess the issue coming back to what Mr. Reimark was talking about, especially in the city of Wilmington, and when we have these housing studies, they talk about we're short about 10,000 units, give or take, right? So just for everybody that's watching this, the city of Wilmington, based on calculations, just raw land, it's about 1,000 acres or less property left in the city of Wilmington. Now, that's not including infill development, but about 1,000 acres, let's just say. Less than half the size of landfall. And I've always told people, you're not putting 10,000 units in the city of Wilmington. You got to have room to grow. That's why a lot of it is going across the river. That's why a lot of it is going up in Pender County. What I calculate is about 6,000 acres up in the northern tier. That's why they were so important to be part of this process. Saying that, if we're going to continue to move forward, and we have since I believe we ended up being an entitlement program back in the 70s, but really the city has been involved in this thing since the mid-90s. It made some pretty significant investments over the years, and it put affordable housing in place. If we do reconstruct this committee, which I believe we should because we're going to be spending money and continue to spend money, I think there needs to be a caveat to make certain that people understand that we're not going to do this 100% in the city of Wilmington. There's just not enough room. Plus, based on some of the calculations I've seen as of late as to what land is selling for in the city of Wilmington, could go from $500,000 to $3 million an acre. You can put a certain amount of affordability in that, but your land costs drive what affordable housing looks like. Your sticks and bricks, we can calculate that all day. We can look at it. It's pretty easy. We can look at what the markets are telling us in lumber, gypsum, all that stuff. But the land cost is a whole other dimension. And to Mr. Reimark's point, the other part of this is a lot of it is state regulated through stormwater. That's a lot of cost in that. Curbs, gutters, water, sewer, and we can calculate what that's going to look like. Stormwater is another big component of this. And as an area that continues to flood from time to time, we have much more stringent stormwater rules east of 95 than we do west of 95. And I've always made that argument to the rest of the state that it's not fair of the stormwater regulations that we have here, taking into consideration 500-year storms and 100-year storms. But I just want to make certain that if we do reconstruct this committee, that it's very clear to everybody that's looking at the city of Wilmington, fix this problem. It's not going to be done 100% on the back of this community. And there will be some opportunities, and I hope that the county can step up from time to time, and I hope the endowment can step up from time to time. We've heard a lot of discussion about this because this is as much an economic development initiative as anything else. Because I can tell you this, because I sit on Wilmington Business Development, when that Amazon folks were coming here and others that have looked at this community, they're looking at the affordability of housing in the community because that's going to be based on what they're going to be able to pay their employees. And when the average price home in New Hanover County now is over $400,000, you do the calculation as to what it's going to cost you to live here based on the salaries that you're making. And it's pretty simple to put it together. So we'll be able to put a certain amount of it together. But I also know that you folks are working on some pretty significant projects that also would involve tax credit developers. I want to also say this 866 units, part of it was done by the private sector. Part of it was done working with the county and with the state of North Carolina, because out of those 866, pull out 279 for the Starway project. So we have a considerable amount of units that we put in place working together. And I just hope that we continue to work in this direction because I think it's that important of an issue for this community. And not only this community, every community in this state and in this country is talking about the same issues because affordability changed after 2008. And I'm going to say it again and again, the financial crisis of 2008 changed that. And if you look at most of the, because people are always asking me, what about all these apartments and multifamily? 34,000 acres in the city of Wilmington, 52 square miles, 57% of that is single family. Only 9% of it is multifamily. Look at the numbers, folks. You can't put but so much unless you guys want to start going up 7, 8, 10 stories, and I don't see that either. So let's make sure that whatever we do, we're very clear in our objective and what we can and we cannot do. I think the study that was done a couple of years ago was an exceptional study, and I just want to make certain that we're clear on that, okay? Thank you.
If I may.
Yes.
Yeah, I also think it's important to, when we're looking at our policies, that workforce housing and tree preservation don't exist apart from one another in some sort of a vacuum. There's this idea, especially the most ardent supporters of affordable housing will also be the most ardent supporters of tree preservation. And the policies that we have, specifically the density incentives, are directly in opposition to tree preservation. I would also argue directly in opposition to affordability, because the sheer amount of dollars that you have to, that a developer would have to pay in order to mitigate the trees that they're going to have to take down in order to get that density bonus, we lose twice. We get the trees cut down, and that dollar figure, which is huge, gets tacked onto the bottom line and directly impacts affordability. So I'm certainly all about, you know, continuing to look at this, but I think we have, while we've delivered some affordable units, we've missed the mark in some of our policy, and I'll have more to say on it.
Well, you'll be happy to know that we do have a fee waiver application, or you can request a fee waiver for affordable projects through our fee schedule for tree mitigation. So there is some relief in that.
Yeah, but we can discuss it more, but I think we both know that there's a significant impact from a dollar figure to the tree mitigation that happens in any project, but specifically in some of the density bonus projects that have an affordability metric tied to it.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Salat.
So, first of all, I would just wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Rivenbark's questions, and maybe if you could have that for us tomorrow night, because I know I've seen that you have charts on the number of units that have been developed over this time period, and how many of them were considered by the Workforce Housing Advisory Committee. And in addition to that, I'd like to say that we did receive some communication from one of the members of the committee talking about, you know, maybe it's just this whole concept of workforce housing and how we define it, because we define it differently in different settings. And so maybe it does need to expand to just an affordable housing committee. And then third, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
The mayor touched upon the cost of the average home that's for sale, single-family home. I don't think that that's necessarily what most people are thinking of when they're thinking of affordable housing or even workforce housing. The latest numbers from HUD say that the average one-bedroom apartment in Wilmington right now is over $1,300 a month, and that requires a full-time wage of $26 an hour. And we have a lot of workforce here in Wilmington that is not making $26 an hour. And I agree with the mayor that that is definitely an economic development consideration, because people look at that, and if you look at the ones that are actually listed right now as available, it's over $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment. So, but if we just take the lower numbers, the HUD numbers, we're talking about a wage of $26 an hour full-time, and we just have a lot of people in this community who aren't making that. So that's my couple of asks here, is that, first of all, bring us back a list of what has happened since 2014, and how much this committee has contributed to that, and also maybe add the concept, and that could be under establish a new committee, that we expand the scope into affordable housing in general.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to chime in a little, based on all of the comments and statements made before me. Councilmember Andrews made a good point, and I just want to point out, since I've been on this council for the past 5 years, there was a transition of the term and the definition of affordable housing to workforce housing, where there was a sprinkle of positivity put on it because people were associating affordable housing with low income housing. And a lot of members of this community didn't want any low income housing anywhere close to where they live. So they put this workforce housing spin on it to clean it up to make it more acceptable. I'm just shocked to hear some of us say that we've missed the mark, because I think we've done some good work, and we've actually done a lot of mixed income projects in the past 5 years where we've gotten the AMI percentage down to 30. 80 was good when I first got here. Then we saw some projects that took place that dropped to 60, and we were super impressed. But then we had Starway Village come along with 30% AMI. And then we were able to, get developers to come to us looking for incentives, looking to make affordable housing projects. So again, to hear us say that we've missed the mark is just, I'm flabbergasted to hear us say that, especially because, we wanted to take credit for the work that we've done. And I think, again, as I said about CRAC, this work is pivotal work. It's a long-term goal. It's not a short game. It's a long game. And so just because the county has opted to to get out of it and to give their duties or responsibilities over to the endowment, I don't think we need to follow that route. We need to keep doing what we've done. I think we need to get better at what we're doing to make it happen, and not to be discouraged or not to play, not to keep moving the goalposts. Yeah, I'll end it with that. We don't need to keep moving the goalposts. Right. We just need to keep pressing forward to do what we've done.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Rivenbark.
There's a difference between affordable housing and workforce housing.
No, it's not.
I'm talking here, Kevin, I'm recognized. You're not recognized.
You've got the floor, Councilman Rivenbark.
Anyway, there is a difference between affordable and workforce housing. Look at the numbers. Developers know the difference. They can build affordable housing and turn a profit by themselves, good. If they can build workforce housing with our help, with gap funding, what have you, and we can, good. But there's a distinct difference between workforce and affordable housing, and that line got very blurred. I've sat at many a meeting, heard many people come up here, and they're talking about one, and I know in their heart, and what they mean is they're talking about the other, but they get joined together, and there's a difference. I mean, just from a number standpoint, spells the difference. And if it was left up to somebody to go out there and put his name on the piece of paper at the bank and do it, buy the land and build it, God bless him. It can't be done in this environment that we're in right now. If I'm going to sell my house and a buyer comes along and we have an appraisal done and the appraisal says it's worth $450,000, I don't feel like I'm compelled to sell it for $300,000. I want to get the $450,000, what the appraisal says. And that's the way the market is. It just is. That you can't change that. You can help and do the things that we've strived to do, but that's the only way that these things get done. And to put it on the backs of the persons or the people or the community that's out there trying to build that is totally wrong. We don't put it on any other segment of our working society, but they catch the brunt of it, and we're glad to help. And Lord knows we have helped, state and federal. That's how it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, you mentioned that the committee also works as a regional approach. Are there any statistics, any numbers that says through our working together, we've helped to create housing in this region or that region? Is there?
The committee is just for New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington.
Okay.
The regional approach is for the Cape Fear Housing Coalition.
Okay.
And so again, that's looking at that more regional effort. The housing studies that had been conducted both by City of Wilmington, New Hanover County, and then even when New Hanover County did just the updates, those are looking at just this, the county as a whole, balance of county, city. There was a state report that looked at that to take it a little bit longer, or a different view to say what are all the other counties looking at as far as gaps in number of units. And then there are obviously some state reports, but from a regional, this committee is just focused here in New Hanover County and City of Wilmington.
Okay. And perhaps when you come back tomorrow, could you give us like a definition of specifically like workforce housing and affordable housing? So we can look at them side by side and find out if there are any differences or discrepancies. All right, any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. And so again, what we're looking for tomorrow would be for council members to be prepared to identify which option or combination of options you're interested in directing staff. And if there is an interest in continuing with one or both of these committees in some form or fashion, it may also be beneficial to take a look at that duties page on both of those presentations and think about some of these initiatives and conversations that we've
Yes.
had and make sure that they fall within the existing duties. And if there are things that don't seem to line up, then we can also have a conversation about what adjustments you might be interested in seeing one or both committees make as they move forward under a new structure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, today we have the 2025 Community Survey Overview.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the 2025 Community Survey. This presentation will cover the survey's historical context, the methodology employed, the significance of the data collected, an introduction to the newly structured instrument, and the expected timeline for delivery. In 2007, the city initiated community surveys to evaluate resident satisfaction with key city services, as well as to identify community priorities. Throughout this program, we have collaborated with ETC, which has enabled us to track our progress and our setbacks, as well as to benchmark our resident satisfaction against that of our peer cities in the Atlantic region, which include North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. The graphic displayed on your screen outlines our previous survey efforts and illustrates both the challenges and successes our community has faced between testing cycles, factors which can significantly impact resident satisfaction and priorities. The survey is distributed to a randomly selected group of households within the city's jurisdiction. Each mailed survey comes with a prepaid envelope and a cover letter detailing the survey's purpose and urging residents to participate by returning their response. Additionally, for those who prefer an online option, a link to a digital version is provided. ETC Institute employs geocoding to evaluate the effectiveness of service delivery across various neighborhoods within the city by mapping the home addresses of survey participants. The resulting map displays the geographic distribution of residents who participate in the survey, highlighting their locations throughout the city. The 2023 survey results are appearing on your screen. The question often arises regarding the utilization of collected data and its impact on the decisions made by both the administration and our elected officials. The survey identifies community priorities, which have been reflected in the key focus areas of City Council's strategic plan. Throughout the implementation of the strategic plan, the survey serves as a tool for assessing the effectiveness of our program execution. Furthermore, departments leverage this feedback to inform their multi-year business plans, helping to pinpoint both strengths and challenges in their service delivery roles. Ultimately, employees set individual goals that are aligned with the priorities established by their departments and overarching strategic plan. The key focus areas of the strategic plan are identified on your screen and are as a result of the community's priorities for the upcoming 5 years, contemplated from the previous biennial community survey. On your screen is an outline of the multi-year departmental business plans to elaborate on the development and the potential that the departments use in the survey data. The business plans are intended to illustrate the progression of the community survey data to defined objectives, anticipated impacts, and effective measures of success. Closer? What's that? Okay. On your screen is an outline of the updated community survey for the 2025 collection. The instrument has been thoughtfully designed to align its questions with the key focus areas outlined in City Council's strategic plan. This excerpt is from the revised instrument and introduces a new pilot question aimed at thoroughly addressing the previously noted concerns regarding the city's growth planning. I will conclude by outlining the anticipated timeline for the delivery of the forthcoming community survey. As you can see, we utilize the month of July to create the new instrument. Our sampling is expected to begin the end of August, with follow-ups being conducted during the month of September. Analysis and reporting will be conducted in October, and the expectation is that we will be prepared to present survey results at the November work session in preparation and hopefully with assisting in establishing the priorities of the next budget year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment, because it relates to the last presentation, which is that I just remember in 2023, the top 3 areas of concern were, and they were all interrelated, as Councilmember Waddell points out, are growth and development, transportation and infrastructure, and affordable housing. Affordable housing is all, and those have been fairly consistent throughout the years, if I recall. So, I'm excited that we're doing this, and I think we should move forward with the concerns of our residents.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation.
And that concludes all of staff's presentations this morning.
All right. Anything else? All right. Appointments committee will be meeting following that. All right. Nothing else? Meeting adjourned.